It was one of those relentless gray afternoons that make everything feel slower, where the sky never really brightens, and the sound of rain just loops endlessly in the background. I was 28 at the time, living alone in a small apartment on the outskirts of Portland. I worked remotely as a graphic designer, which meant that most days I barely interacted with anyone beyond the occasional delivery driver or a client on Zoom. I liked it that way, quiet, predictable, safe. That particular Thursday, I remember, was supposed to be uneventful. I'd woken up to the steady tap of rain against my window, brewed some coffee, and opened my laptop to get through another day of deadlines. By late afternoon, I was restless from being indoors. The rain had lightened into a mist, and I decided to walk to the corner store just 2 blocks away to grab some snacks and maybe a lottery ticket. I threw on my old hoodie, slipped into sneakers that were already damp from days of drizzle, and grabbed my umbrella. I remember thinking the air felt unusually cold when I stepped outside, like the rain was seeping through every layer of fabric. The streets were almost empty, which wasn't unusual for my neighborhood on rainy days. A few cars hissed past, leaving ripples in the puddles. I tucked my hands into my pockets and kept my head down, following the rhythm of my own footsteps on the wet pavement. It should have been just another short walk in the rain. But sometimes, normal days twist in ways you can't predict. And this one has stayed with me ever since. The corner store was a familiar comfort, a place lit in warm orange, where the cashier always played the same old classic rock station. I went there so often that the guy behind the counter, Mike, knew my usual order before I even opened my mouth: coffee, beef jerky, and whatever snack I was craving that week. "Man, this rain just doesn't quit," he said, scanning my things. "Yeah," I replied, shaking my umbrella out just outside the door. "Feels like it's been a month straight." We made small talk for a minute or two, about the weather, about how the power had flickered the night before. Ordinary stuff. I paid, grabbed my bag, and stepped back into the wet evening. By then, the rain had picked up again, a steady drizzle that blurred everything under the streetlights. I tucked my umbrella low and started walking back home. The neighborhood was quiet except for the low hum of distant traffic and the occasional bark of a dog behind a fence. About halfway down the block, I noticed something, or rather, someone, walking on the opposite side of the street. They were hard to make out through the mist, but what caught my attention was the bright yellow of their raincoat. It stood out against the gray surroundings like a warning sign. At first, I didn't think much of it. Just another person caught out in the rain. But when I turned down my street, they turned too, keeping roughly the same pace, maybe 50 feet behind. I told myself it was nothing. Coincidence. After all, there were only a few houses past mine. Still, I found myself walking a little faster. The rhythm of our footsteps was the only sound for a while, mine and theirs, echoing faintly through the rain. Each time I slowed, theirs seemed to slow too. It was subtle, but noticeable enough to put a weight in my stomach. When I reached the small alley that cut between my building and the next, I glanced over my shoulder for the first time. The figure in the yellow raincoat had stopped, just standing there under a flickering streetlight. The hood covered their face, and for a moment neither of us moved. Then they started walking again. Not toward me, but across the street, vanishing behind a parked van. I laughed quietly under my breath, more out of nerves than anything. "Get a grip," I muttered. "It's just someone walking home." I went up the short steps to my apartment building, fumbled with my keys, and went inside. The building itself was old and a bit run down. 3 floors, cracked hallways, a faint smell of mildew. My unit was on the 2nd floor facing the street. As I locked the door behind me, I tried to shake off the weird feeling. I told myself I was just being paranoid, Still, before sitting down, I peeked through the blinds. The rain distorted the street below into streaks of light and shadow. For a second, I thought I saw the yellow coat again, at the far end of the block. But when I blinked, it was gone. I told myself I'd imagined it. I turned off the light and sat on the couch trying to focus on a show. The sound of rain against the window was almost calming now. Almost. Around 9 p.m., I went to make dinner, just pasta and sauce from a jar. The TV murmured in the background, something forgettable. I remember glancing out the window again, mostly out of habit. The street was empty. But when I turned toward the kitchen sink to drain the pasta, I froze. In the reflection of the darkened window above the sink, there was movement, a faint shape passing across the glass. My first thought was that it was someone walking by on the sidewalk, but the window was on the side of the building, overlooking the narrow alley. Hardly anyone used it. I turned off the faucet and listened. Just rain. I walked slowly toward the living room and looked out the main window again, trying not to make it obvious in case someone was out there. Across the street, barely visible under the streetlight, was the yellow raincoat. They were standing completely still, facing my building. No umbrella, no motion, just watching. My pulse started pounding in my ears. I shut the blinds and stepped back. I tried to rationalize it. Maybe it was someone waiting for an Uber or a neighbor taking a smoke break. But the longer I stood there, the less that made sense. After a few minutes, I decided to call Mike, the guy from the store. He lived a couple blocks away and sometimes stopped by for a beer. "Hey man," I said, trying to keep my voice casual. "You notice anyone weird walking around tonight? Yellow coat, maybe?" "Nah," he said. "Why?" "Just thought I saw someone hanging around." He laughed. "Probably just some kid. Don't let the rain mess with your head." We talked a bit more, and I pretended to relax. But when I hung up, I couldn't shake the unease. I double-checked the locks, drew the curtains tight, and then, from somewhere outside, I heard it. Slow, deliberate footsteps splashing through puddles, coming closer. They stopped right outside my building. I crept to the peephole. At first, nothing. Just rain dripping from the awning. Then, movement. A hand reached up and pressed against the glass of the outer door. Pale fingers, a yellow sleeve. I backed away, heart racing. For a full minute, the hand stayed there unmoving. Then slowly it withdrew. I heard the faint creak of the front door opening. Someone must have buzzed them in. My stomach dropped. Footsteps echoed up the stairwell. 1 flight, 2. Then, silence. I stood there, barely breathing, listening for anything. The sound of water dripping from a coat. The faint shuffle of shoes on old linoleum. A shadow passed under my door. I grabbed the heaviest thing within reach, a cast iron pan from the stove, and waited. My phone was on the counter, but I didn't dare move for it. The doorknob rattled once, then again, harder. "Who's there?" I managed to say, my voice shaking. No answer. Another rattle, then a whisper, so faint I almost thought I imagined it. "Let me in." My whole body went cold. "Get the hell away from my door," I said. The whisper came again, drawn out this time. "You dropped something." My mind raced. What the hell was he talking about? Then I remembered. The receipt from the store. I'd stuffed it in my hoodie pocket. It must have fallen out when I fumbled for my keys earlier. It had my name and apartment number printed on it. The handle turned one last time, then stopped. After what felt like forever, the footsteps retreated, slow, dragging, down the stairs and out into the rain. I didn't move until I heard the front door downstairs slam shut. I called the police immediately. 2 officers showed up about 20 minutes later, but by then the street was empty again. They took my statement, checked the area, and found nothing. "Probably some creep," one of them said. "We'll patrol the neighborhood tonight, but you should be fine." That didn't help. I didn't sleep at all. Every sound, the rain, the pipes, the wind, made me flinch. The next morning, when I finally gathered enough courage to leave for groceries, I found something wedged between my door and the frame. A damp receipt. My receipt. In shaky handwriting across the top, someone had written, "You didn't say thank you." I moved out 2 weeks later. It's been over a year since that night, and I still can't stand the sound of rain. It triggers something, that quiet, suffocating dread. I've moved twice since then, changed my phone number, even started using a P.O. box instead of putting my address on anything. The police never found anyone matching the description I gave. The security camera in the lobby had water damage, so the footage was useless. Sometimes I wonder if it was all just bad luck. A stranger passing by who noticed an open receipt. But deep down, I know it wasn't that simple. A few months ago, it rained for the first time in my new city. I forced myself to go outside to prove to myself I wasn't still scared. When I got back to my apartment, there was a wet footprint in the hallway leading right up to my door. Just one. No note this time. No noise. But the next morning, taped to my window from the outside was a small strip of yellow plastic, the kind used on raincoats. I keep it in a drawer now, just to remind myself that some people don't vanish when the storm ends. They wait for the next one.